accounts how you're supposed to use this piston ring grinder, you're supposed to actually go in reverse. I don't do that. They say only grind one surface of the ring. I don't do that. And basically I kind of want to show you what I'm doing. So when you squeeze the piston ring down, when it actually gets compressed in the cylinder, you want those ends to be parallel. But the only way you're gonna get that parallel is to pinch them down and grind them at the same time. It's about as close to parallel as you're gonna get. Because you see, the inside diameter of the ring is smaller. The outside diameter is larger. And what they're going on is you set it on these two pegs here, and that supposedly you're supposed to grind one side or the other, and you're supposed to hold it flat on this top surface, and the pegs keep it kind of located. But if you've ever messed with one of these, you know it doesn't take much tension, much pressure at all, to distort that ring, you know, one way or the other. That changes the angle from the outside diameter to the inside diameter. Plus, if you're only going on one side, you're really, I mean, it's too difficult to try and get that angle the way it's supposed to be. So if I press it from the back side against the pegs, so I'm pushing it down against the flat part, the surface of the grinder, and I'm pushing it forward so that the pegs squeeze it in, I know I'm getting even pressure. And then I can look at the wheel. The wheel moves back and forth in this thing. It's kind of sloppy. So basically I have to bring it in on the wheel, and then I look straight down and I try and match that circle as if it was a whole circle. Maybe I can get a shot with the camera. Maybe I can, I don't know. Let me see if I can do this one-handed. I don't know if I can. So I squeeze it in, and then you can move your thumb one way or the other, and it actually changes where that ring lines up. You can see. So I have to be really careful to keep that alignment of the two halves where they're supposed to be on the wheel, and where that wheel is, where the wheel is this way, actually changes how the ring sits this way, you know, whether it's this way or that way. So you want to keep the ring to where it looks like a complete circle with that wheel in there. And then you want to grind it at the same time, and it takes a lot of pressure on your thumb. And then I grind it that way, and then I just make sure I deburr all of the burrs off. And all I'm doing is I've got a little red Scotch lock, and then I'm just wiping it over just the edge, corner edge of the ring, just enough to deburr it, because I think it's a much more gentle abrasive this way than like emery cloth or sandpaper. And then I don't risk messing up the coating on the rings as much, but yet I don't want to take just a big chunk out of the corner with a file. I just want to knock off that edge that I'm getting as the metal's folding over as I'm grinding. So basically I just swipe it a few times and I can feel the edge with my finger. And then that's how I do my rings. It's kind of a pain in the butt. It takes a lot of grinding. My thumb is super duper sore. It's horrible, horrible. But I can actually grind a really parallel grind. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really, really parallel when that ring comes in. So what that's going to do is, if you leave a little rounded edge on the outside, when you file, if you round this edge out here, that's the same as opening up the gap on your ring practically. It has the same effect. You're still going to butt that ring if you overheat it and get it really hot and it pinches in on itself, but that rounded edge has the same effect as gapping out your ring even further. So you want to try and keep that as parallel as possible, with as sharp of an edge as possible, without having any burrs. And that's what I'm doing. It takes me a long time because my fingers get really super duper sore, and you got to be really careful that the two ends don't misalign when you're doing that. So it's just a painstaking process, literally. My thumb is not happy, but that's how I gap my rings. I know that's not the way I'm supposed to gap rings, according to all kinds of instructions on gapping rings. But if you get the angle off from the outside diameter to the inside diameter, what happens is you can get either where one side, when you pinch the ring in, it slants either this way or this way, and then you don't have an actual parallel gap. All right, I want to show you how fast I can do one of these rings by grinding it on both sides and being extremely careful to have it lined up. So you can see this ring in here, the gap is down here, but there is no gap on that ring. There is no gap on that ring right there. So these are brand new, no gap. And I'm gonna basically show you how quickly I can put a 32 thousandths gap, because that's what I'm gapping them to, so that if I want to hit them hard with if I want to hit them hard with nitrous or turbo, then I can really just friggin' hit them hard with a lot of boost or anything, you know. But these pistons have such a large dish in them that they're really going to be fairly low compression. So I should be able to do quite a bit on low grade pump gas. It won't be as much horsepower as some people, but when I want to hit it hard with nitrous or turbo, I'll be able to hit them extremely hard with nitrous and turbo. So here we go. Here's a view. That's pretty straight in the middle there. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got quite a bit of pressure up on those pins. Making sure I'm still straight. Okay. This top ring is going to be harder than the bottom ring. Now I can feel that I have a bit of a burr with my fingernail on a little bit on the back side, a little on the front, a little on the bottom. The top, not so much. So I'm just going to take this little Scotch lock disc here, and I'm just going to give it some just a little bit of love. My fingernail will feel when that's gone. When that little burr is gone, I can feel it. Doesn't take much to knock it off. And then if I touch these two ends together, I don't know if you can see it, but they're pretty well parallel to each other. So now, stay camera, stay. Get the camera situated. Okay, so now and it does matter having these things square in the bore. So I got this piston's got a second ring that's already been gapped, and then my oil ring. And then I did end up putting my oh, what do they call it? The oil support ring, I guess they call them. So whenever your piston pin comes through the edge of this oil ring groove, you have to have one of these support rings under there, otherwise bad things happen. And I almost forgot those, so I got them put on today. So I think looks like I'm probably really thin on that one. I'm not even 20 thousandths yet, but you can see the gap down here in the ring, probably, maybe. So the top rings are harder than the second rings. The second rings are like cast iron. So here we go again. Doesn't take much to remove those burrs. So we've got, well, more than 20 thousandths now. What do we got going on here? What's that one? 23. So we got almost 23 thousandths in there now. And as annoying as it is to actually have to deburr these rings every time I go to try and fit them, it's critical that I deburr them so that I don't score the cylinder wall with a burr. And that is perfect at 32 now. So I've got the pistons and rods in. So I've got to start thinking about how to button up the bottom end, oil pan and all that stuff. I got to figure out what I'm going to end up doing with cylinder heads. I'm actually leaning towards rectangle ports, like a LS3 head, because I really would like this to flow a lot of air. So I'd like to go naturally aspirated with some big power numbers. So I'm actually thinking maybe some LS3 heads and a really high lift camshaft, because with the dishes on these pistons, they're actually dished pretty good. But I think the pistons, they're LS1 15-degree head pistons. So I need to make sure that I've got heads that match. So I may have to just end up going cathedral port. But if I go cathedral port, I don't know that I get a whole lot extra out of the aftermarket heads for, you know, dollars for, I don't know, I think I get to a point of diminishing returns, and at that point I just put a bunch of nitrous or a bunch of boost to it, you know. So anyways, just trying to figure that out. It looks like my deck height is I mean, calculated, I don't have a straight edge or whatever, but I believe calculated, what I came up with was, you know, depending on what he's got the deck height to, 15 thousandths of an inch from the top of the piston to the deck, which it's not bad. So even if I had some 72cc chamber heads, with everything that's going on here, I'm looking at probably like 9.5 to 1 compression ish. So that's really not too bad. 9.5 compression is like having a LQ9 instead of an LQ4, you know, 9 versus 9 to 1. And of course on those cubic inches, it's worth about 50 horse on a stock motor. So I am looking at some decent power gains just from that, but yeah, I'm thinking if I put small chamber heads on it, bump the compression ratio up even higher, you know, I might get it to 10 or 11 to 1 ish, depending on the size of the chambers and the heads. But I'm thinking should end up being able to make some really good power with this motor. But I need to get this motor together. I got the cam bolts that I ordered because my buddy said that a couple of them stripped out on him, and so he had to drill them out when he took the motor apart. And so I had to order a couple more. So I should be able to get these in, and I should be able to get them torqued. And then he can't find the oil cooler, so that's gonna cost me some money, because I think the cheapest I found them was somewhere like 180 bucks ish online. So they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but obviously I had the oil cooler on here before because I have the stud to hold in the oil cooler and then screw on the oil filter after the oil cooler. So I need to get me an oil cooler. Oops. I got everything in the oil pan buttoned up. It's all sealed up, buttoned up underneath. So I need an oil cooler, oil filter. I need to finish getting all of the stuff on the front put together, all the new stuff. I went to the junkyard, and they didn't have any like the EJ20 or EJ25 motors, and I grabbed these cam bolts from a twin cam, but it was not right. They're shallower. These bolts are a whole lot longer. They're, you know, like this long. So I didn't like the amount of thread engagement in the camshafts, so I did break down and order 2 more bolts. These are originally 2 bolts that came with the motor in the motor. So, but I got all this stuff, and I'm debating whether to maybe take this stuff from the WRX and swap it into that Beetle pan, and then have a WRX powered T bucket, you know, Model T pickup truck dune buggy. I mean, I think that would be pretty cool. Put some big sand paddles on the back, or just, you know, some big wide tires and run around on the street or in the sand dunes, or, you know, just go rip and have fun. So I need to finish getting this together. Heads are on, camshafts are all buttoned up. I'm up here to all this stuff on the front, and do all the timing stuff, do the alternator and power steering setup, all the, you know, intake and all that. And I did bring the intake down here, so I got the intake down there to put on it. But this one is getting a lot closer, and so yeah, I've never really messed with a Subaru before, and I'm not really impressed, but, you know, I've screwed a lot of stuff up because I don't know what I'm doing with the Subaru. So as I learn, and maybe once I get ripping with it, maybe I'll like it, but we'll see. But I got the whole new timing set down there. I got a whole brand new clutch and everything for it, because when I pulled it apart, the clutch was all jacked up and stuff. So this one though, this one's gonna go in this guy here. I need to get some stuff going and done up for this stuff, but yep. Maybe I'll just finish porting and polishing these heads and just use them to just stay cheap. And I'm actually thinking what I would like to do with this one is get the Holley split intake manifold, the single plane high rise. And then I was thinking maybe I'll try putting that Phytech fuel injection on this, because that Phytech's supposed to be good for 600 horsepower. And this one should be easily 600 horsepower, you know, 600 to 700 horsepower, naturally aspirated. So I was thinking with that Holley intake manifold, I could maybe machine the bosses for the fuel injectors, you know, and just actually machine it for a nitrous fogger setup, and then maybe hit it with like a 500 horse shot of nitrous if I really wanted to. And yeah, that'd be a lot of power. And I could do that. I could have it, you know, look like it was carbureted, look like it belonged in the Camaro. And I think with the Phytech fuel injection sitting on top, I would still get the atomization benefits and the cooling like you get with the carburetor. So I think I could actually make more power with that manifold, doing it that way. So that's what I'm thinking. Also, if I went with that manifold, if I opted to go to the fuel injection, I could just machine the rails, the bosses in the intake manifold for fuel injection rails, and I could just put a 90-degree elbow on top of that manifold and run a really huge throttle body on it, and I could still make huge amounts of power. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with it, because I know that intake manifold flows a lot. So I'm looking for extreme competitiveness, we'll say. And so that's what I'm thinking with this motor, is maybe go to that Holley split manifold. That way I can actually port it and polish it. If I use the cathedral port heads for just cheap heads, then I could port match that manifold to those heads where I did the porting and polishing on. You know, it might not be as consistent as like a CNC port job, but a hell of a lot cheaper because I'm doing it. And I don't know. So we'll see. But it's getting kind of late. I got to go to work this afternoon, work all night for snow, the airport. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you later.